Let me describe a scenario so obviously insane that you'll wonder why anyone would ever do it. Imagine you break a bone, and the moment it breaks, you immediately take a drug specifically designed to stop the bone from knitting back together. You would think that person had lost their mind. You'd stop them. And yet, that is almost exactly what the standard of care recovery protocol does to your body right after you pay for a regenerative procedure. I'm Dr. Gurpreet Padda, and I've spent 30 years watching patients invest their hope and their money into a regenerative injection, and then unknowingly sabotage the entire thing in the first 72 hours, because they were handed generic advice that works directly against the biology they just paid to activate. This is the part of the story that no glossy brochure explains. The injection is not the finish line, it's the starting gun. And what you do in the days and weeks that follow will either build on it or bury it. Today, I'm going to tell you the truth about recovery that the assembly line will not. We are going to stop managing pain and start managing the biological terrain. The cost of generic advice is not just measured in dollars, it is measured in lost function and failed potential. Let's look at why your current recovery is actually a sabotage. To understand why, you have to unlearn something you've been taught your whole life, that inflammation is the enemy. In the world you've been sold the industrial medical model, inflammation is always bad. It's something to crush, suppress, and silence as fast as possible. But here is the biological truth your doctor may never have told you. Inflammation is the engine of repair. It is the necessary, uncomfortable, sometimes painful signal that kicks off the entire healing cascade. When you get a regenerative injection, when we introduce growth factors, whether it's PRP, BMAC, or MFAT, we are deliberately, intentionally trying to trigger a controlled inflammatory response. This is not a side effect, it is the mechanism. It's the body's demolition and construction crew showing up to the site, clearing the old damage and laying down new tissue. We are activating cytochrome C oxidase. We are initiating mechanotransduction. So when a patient walks out of a regenerative procedure and immediately starts doing everything in their power to shut inflammation down, they're not managing pain. They're firing the entire construction crew on day one and then wondering why nothing got built. You are literally telling the builders to go home before they've even unloaded the bricks. Let me show you what this looks like in real life with two people. Picture two patients, same joint, same problem, same quality injection on the same day. The first one goes home and does what she's always been told. She rests completely. She ices constantly. And every time she feels a twinge, she reaches for the ibuprofen. Because that's what you do, right? You stay ahead of the pain. The second patient does something that feels almost wrong to the assembly line mind. He resists the urge to shut it all down. He follows a precise, physician-guided recovery, gentle, deliberate movement, targeted therapies, and critically, he does not dump anti-inflammatory drugs onto the exact fire we just lit on purpose. 6 weeks later, these two people are in completely different places. Not because their bodies were different, not because one had better luck, but because one of them spent 72 hours quietly dismantling the very process she paid thousands of dollars to start. One followed the biological soil, the other followed a generic brochure. The result? One is back on the conveyor belt, and the other is back to their life. One respects the Arndt-Schultz law, the other is breaking it. Let's name the biggest culprit directly, the NSAIDs. The ibuprofen, the naproxen, the over-the-counter anti-inflammatories that our entire culture treats like candy. Here is the biological reality. When you inject growth factors to trigger a controlled healing inflammation, and then you immediately flood your system with drugs whose entire job is to shut inflammation down, you are slamming the emergency brake on the exact process you just paid to start. You are sending your body two contradictory instructions at once: begin repair and stop repair, and the drug usually wins. This isn't a small effect. You can meaningfully blunt the results of an expensive regenerative procedure with a bottle of pills you grabbed at the pharmacy because you thought you were helping. This is the tragedy of it. These patients aren't careless. They're doing exactly what they were told. They were just told by a system that treats every ache with the same reflex. Suppress the signal, even when suppressing the signal destroys the healing. you are silencing the very voice your body uses to speak to its builders. You're effectively putting a gag on the immune system right when it needs to scream for reinforcements. And it's not just the pills, it's the whole rest and ice culture. The reflexive one-size-fits-all recovery script handed to every single patient, regardless of their tissue, their metabolism, or their nervous system. I'll be honest with you about who I am. I have always been an outsider in medicine. I've never been comfortable doing something just because that's how it's always been done. I am a clinical commander, a disruptor, and a reanimateur. And when I look at the standard recovery protocol with clear eyes, what I see is lazy medicine. It is generic advice, applied identically to everyone because generic is easy and individual is hard. Rest. For how long? For whom? Rest too much and you don't recover. You atrophy. You let the muscle waste, the joints stiffen, the whole system power down. The body is not a phone that recharges by being left alone on a nightstand. It is a system that adapts to what you ask of it. Ask nothing, and it gives you nothing back. We don't want you to be a passive observer of your own decline. We want you to be a sovereign seeker of your own recovery. Muscle is the organ of longevity, the sink for your metabolism. When you rest it into the ground, you are destroying your metabolic soil. So we don't tell you to rest into decline. We tell you to move into recovery. And those are opposite philosophies of healing. And then there's the timeline, the magic 48 to 72 hour recovery window printed on the discharge sheet. I want you to know that number is, for the most part, a hallucination. It's a convenient fiction, a generic figure designed to fit a brochure, not your biology. Your actual recovery timeline is not determined by a pamphlet. It is determined by your physiological reality, your terrain. If you are metabolically dysfunctional, if you have high LDL-P, elevated TNF-alpha, or IL-6, if your terrain is inflamed and your mitochondria are stressed, your recovery will be slower. Pretending otherwise just sets you up to feel like a failure when the brochure's timeline passes and you're not fixed. If you have high visceral adiposity, measured by METS-VF, your body is already in a state of meta-inflammation. If your nervous system is dysregulated and hypersensitive, your pain perception will be amplified, and a protocol that ignores that will leave you confused and discouraged. These aren't footnotes. They are the actual variables that decide how you heal. At Regen.MD, we don't just look at the joint. We look at the gut-brain pain axis, the lymphatic clearance, and the mitochondrial retrograde signaling. A real recovery protocol has to measure these and respond to them, not paper over them with a number that was never about you in the first place. Fix the terrain, and the timeline will take care of itself. So, what does real recovery look like at Regen.MD? It's the opposite of shutting down. It's intelligent activation. We don't want you to rest into atrophy. We want you to move into recovery under guidance in a way that respects the tissue, but refuses to let you waste away. We use bioactive compression to drive lymphatic flow, to keep the system moving, clearing, circulating, instead of stagnating under an ice pack. We use infrared laser therapy, photobiomodulation, to do something genuinely powerful, to recharge your mitochondria and give your cells the raw energy they need to actually complete the healing cascade we started. Remember, healing is metabolically expensive. It's an energy failure if repair stalls, so we feed the mitochondria. We target cytochrome C oxidase, and we use targeted, precise movement, not random exercise, not just push through it, but deliberate loading calibrated to your tissue and your stage of healing. We use sub-millimeter precision in our orthobiologic hierarchy. This is recovery engineered as carefully as the procedure itself, because to us, they are not separate events. They are one continuous process, and the second half is where most of the outcome is actually decided. We are resetting the sympathetic nervous system, not just masking the signal. Here is the number that should change how you think about all of this. The injection itself, the part everyone obsesses over, the part you shopped around for, is maybe 10% of your result. 10%. The other 90% is what happens in the weeks that follow. 90% lives in the recovery. And that's exactly backwards from how the industry sells it to you. Every clinic markets the injection, the machine, the technology, the procedure, because that's the thing they can charge you for in a single visit and send you on your way. It's the industrial medical assembly line. Almost nobody markets the 90% because the 90% is hard. It requires a relationship. It requires guidance over time. It requires a clinic that actually stays with you instead of handing you a pamphlet and calling the next patient. So when you're deciding where to spend your money and your hope, ask yourself, am I paying for 10% and getting abandoned for the 90? Or am I choosing a place that treats the whole 100? Think about what that abandonment actually costs. You didn't just buy a syringe, you bought a chance at your life back. And handing someone the injection without the recovery is like handing someone a seed and no soil, no water, no sunlight, and then blaming them when nothing grows. The seed was never the point. The conditions were the point. The terrain is the point. And the conditions are exactly the part the assembly line skips, because tending the soil takes time, and time is the one thing a volume clinic will not give you. We provide the time. We provide the terrain. This is why when you come to us, you don't just get an injection and a pat on the back and a wave goodbye. You get a coach, you get a partner, you get a system that understands that the days and weeks after the procedure are where your outcome is truly won or lost. I think of it like climbing a mountain. You would never hire a guide who walked you to the trailhead, pointed vaguely at the summit, handed you a generic brochure, and then went home. That's not a guide. That's abandonment. A real Sherpa has climbed the mountain hundreds of times. They know exactly where the altitude will hit you, where the footing gets treacherous, where people turn back 1 hour before the top. We are the Sherpas of your recovery. We've seen the summit, we know precisely where the pitfalls are, and we walk the whole path beside you, adjusting, coaching, correcting, until you get there. Because the summit isn't the injection. The summit is your life, restored. The summit is metabolic sovereignty. We don't drop you at the trailhead. We rope in with you. We monitor your digital biomarkers via Mesura.ai, tracking your HRV and sleep, ensuring your body is ready for the climb. We don't guess, we measure. Remember the 2 patients from earlier? I want you to be the second one. The one who didn't sabotage the fire we lit on purpose. The one who moved instead of atrophied, who fed the mitochondria instead of starving them, who had a guide instead of a brochure. I won't stand here and promise you a specific outcome, because your biology is your own, and I don't sell guarantees. I engineer conditions, and I respect your body enough to tell you the truth. But I can tell you this: the patients who protect the 90%, who treat recovery as seriously as the procedure, are living in a completely different story than the ones who unknowingly hit the brakes on day 1. Same injection, different respect for the biology, entirely different life on the other side. That's not luck, that's a protocol. That's the Padda protocol. And it's the one almost nobody offered you until now. You have a choice: the assembly line or the clinical command center. Your life is not a diagnosis. Your pain is not a diagnosis. It is a signal. And we are here to listen to it and lead you through the terrain. Choose to protect your investment. Choose to protect your life. So if you are tired of generic one-size-fits-all advice that leaves you spinning your wheels and wondering why your investment didn't pay off, it is time to look at the protocol that actually respects your biology. We need to stop managing pain and start managing healing. Our approach at Regenerative is physician-led, data-driven, and focused on the only metric that has ever mattered: real, functional, long-term outcomes, and the guided recovery it takes to earn them. We are in St. Louis, right next to the airport, because our patients come from everywhere. Sovereign seekers who are done being handed a pamphlet and abandoned. Stop sabotaging your own results with antiquated assembly line advice. Come and see what a precision recovery actually looks like, where the 90% is treated with the same rigor as the injection, and where you are never climbing the mountain alone. Come to Regenerative. Let's protect what you're paying for, and let's get you to the summit. Your life restored. That is your sovereignty. Let's go claim it together. My name is Dr. Gurpreet Padda, and we are ready to fix your terrain. Go to Regen.md to start your journey.